The ominous shadows.
The ominous feeling clung to Sergey, relentless and shadowy, as if the night itself breathed down his neck, whispering secrets meant to unravel his sanity. For 3 days, dread gnawed at his thoughts, weaving into his dreams a mist of confusion and fear that left him waking in cold sweats. Each morning seemed heavier than the last, a slow descent into a world where the boundary between waking and nightmare blurred. It was on the 3rd night that the apparition appeared. From the darkened corner of his modest Moscow apartment, a phantom emerged, gliding with an eerie grace towards the edge of Sergey's bed. The figure's eyes, void of life yet burning with a cold, unyielding emptiness, fixed upon him. His heart thudded wildly as icy fingers reached through the air, plunging into his chest and grasping his heart with an unforgiving chill. "Mother, please forgive me," he whispered in a cracked voice, tears streaming down his face like rivers of grief and regret. Sergey's life was a tapestry of pain and neglect. Raised by his grandmother Lydia after his mother Milka abandoned him, his childhood was marked by a yearning for love that was cruelly denied. Lydia, a resilient woman of firm resolve, had shielded Sergey from the harshness of the world and his mother's rejection. She often recounted the day Milka refused to hold her son, how she recoiled from his innocent cries with a bitter coldness that haunted the boy. "Leave me alone," Milka snapped once, avoiding his outreached hands. Lydia's heart broke as she scolded her daughter. "He is your child, Milka. Speak kindly, for without a mother's love, a child disappears." But Milka's silence spoke volumes. She was imprisoned by demons and sin, her affection buried beneath layers of pain. Sergey grew up knowing he was loved only by Lydia, who bore the burden of motherhood twice over. Years rolled by, and Sergey's resolve hardened. Upon turning 18, he left Lydia's home, crafting a new life in the bustling heart of Moscow. He fought his way through law school, clawing from poverty to become a respected lawyer. Stability seemed within reach, until fate dealt cruel cards once again. Milka fell ill, a hollow echo of the past resurfacing in a hospital room near Sergey's office. The call came from Lydia, imploring him to visit the woman who had cast him away. He hurried to see her, desperate for a moment of reconciliation, to hear from her lips a simple word of love he had craved his entire life. "Hello, Mother," he said softly, heart pounding with fragile hope. Her eyes met his, filled not with warmth but resentment. "How did you get in here?" she demanded harshly. "I arranged it. I'm a lawyer, remember?" he replied gently, trying to pierce the cold barrier between them. Milka turned her face away. "I'm not your mother." The words shattered something within Sergey. "Why? You bore me." "You are not human," she hissed, venom dripping from every syllable. "You are the monster," he shot back. "I fought, I rose from nothing, all for your love, and you never saw me." Milka's silence was a wall, impenetrable and cruel. Sergey reached out, trembling hands searching for a trace of the mother he never had. "Forgive me for losing my temper," he pleaded, but she recoiled even harder, tears breaking free as she sobbed into her pillow. That night, as Sergey lay awake, the nightmare began anew. Whispers floated on the stale hospital air, accusing voices threading through the dark. "You curse your mother," they hissed, "and you will regret it." The window slammed shut with a violent gust. curtains billowing like the wings of some dark bird.
He tried to close the window, but was thrown back onto the bed by an unseen force. The spectre waved over his soul, dragging him toward the descent into terror. When dawn finally broke, the room was untouched, yet the chilling sense lingered like a stain on his mind. The next night brought footsteps, uneven and sharp, circling his bed. Sergey curled into a ball, paralyzed by fear but unable to open his eyes. The presence hovered, breaths heavy against his skin. And then cold fingers, ice cold as they touched his face. And a scream ripped from his throat. Night 3 found Sergey preparing for a battle against forces unseen. He downed cup after cup of bitter coffee, lit a comforting lamp casting gentle shadows, and settled on the bed with a worn book to anchor his scattered mind. He would not yield to the darkness. From the shadowed corner, a small furry shape darted, eyes blazing a yellow fire, chuckling in a voice grotesquely human. "You cursed your mother, you cursed her," it taunted, slipping back into shadows. Sergey recited fragments of prayers learned in childhood, words spilling from his lips in desperation, seeking comfort in familiar rites. The room seemed too quiet, but then a figure emerged, pale and shimmering. It was Milka, or rather her ghost, hovering by the bed with a sorrowful gaze. Her eyes, once lifeless, flickered with fragile humanity. The cold grip on Sergey's chest loosened, and the spectral hand withdrew. "Son," she murmured, voice soft as a sigh, "forgive me. I cannot rest, dragged toward darkness. This burden, this curse you bear, it binds me here." "Mother, I cannot let you go," Sergey choked, terror and love knotted in his throat. Her essence dimmed, shadows pulling near her heart, where a black stain festered. "I was tormented in my youth by a monster, not a man. I could not love you, for he haunted me still in your eyes. They hurt me, and my enemies crushed me. I wanted to end it before you were born, but my mother insisted I keep you. You are not to blame for his evil." Sergey wept, hands trembling as he whispered forgiveness, the weight of decades lifting from them both. "Do not leave, mother. There is hope. My wife Zhenya carries our child, a boy. Together we will build a future. Please stay." Milka's ghost smiled, warmth radiating from her fading form. The dark blotch vanished, and she dissolved into light. The phone rang, jolting Sergey from reverie. Lydia's voice trembled. "She has passed." "I know, grandmother, I know." Later, standing by Milka's grave with Zhenya, their son, and Lydia, Sergey felt peace for the first time. The sky was clear, sunlight gentle, and inside him blossomed a quiet love, freed from shadows. His mother had forgiven him. Now the journey toward healing could truly begin. As the seasons turn, Sergey's path leads him further from past sorrows and into a future life with promise, where the ghosts of yesterday meet the endless hope of tomorrow. Childhood's silent wounds. From the earliest dawn of Sergey's life, shadows of rejection quietly settled around him, shaping his world in silence. Raised by his steadfast grandmother Lydia, whose fierce love was a shield against the cold indifference of his mother Milka, Sergey's childhood was a tapestry woven with complex emotions and unspoken pain. Lydia's weathered hands had cradled him since infancy, guiding him through a maze of maternal absence and lingering wounds that were never named aloud. The air in their modest home often trembled with tension. Whenever Sergey reached for Milka's fragile mercy, her withdrawn gaze and harsh rebukes pushed him farther away. "Stay away from me," she would whisper with a tremor of pain masked by sharpness. Yet the little boy's heart ached for her warmth. Lydia, watching this painful dance, could only murmur, "Milka, your son thirsts for love. Do not let the bitterness consume him." But Milka's silence was her fortress. A stubborn grief she guarded fiercely from the world. Sergey's earliest memories were shadowed by this quiet rejection. He would call softly, "Mama, please," only to be met with cold indifference or angry dismissal. Lydia became his solace, rocking him gently as he wept for a love that refused to bloom. "You are not to blame for her heart's coldness," Lydia reassured him, though even she struggled to illuminate the dark corners of their family's history. The secret sorrow Milka bore was as much a prisoner as her own pain, locked away in silence. At school, Sergey found brief respite in friendships, notably with Simeon, a loyal companion who offered laughter and escape from the home's heady silence. Yet the absence of his mother's affection lingered, a phantom presence haunting his dreams and waking moments alike. At night, Sergey's heart ached with questions too raw to ask aloud. His young mind swollen with confusion over a mother who was near in body, but so distant in spirit. Lydia's wisdom was a balm, but even she could not bridge the gulf that widened with each passing year. "One day you will understand," she promised gently, only to retreat into her own quiet mourning. Her eyes hinted at truths too painful to reveal, guarding her daughter's secret like a fragile relic. Sergey grew under this veil of half-truths, his heart both hardened and tendered by a love unspoken but deeply felt. The loneliness of his mother's rejection contrasted sharply with the unconditional support from other parts of his life. One figure, Arseny, a thoughtful physician connected tangentially to the family's past, symbolized the bridge between what was hidden and what yearned to be known. Arseny's patient kindness and quiet insight hinted at stories still buried beneath layers of memory and shame, offering Sergey glimpses of clarity amidst confusion. Though Milka's disdain for her son was palpable, Sergey's resilience was forged in the fires of rejection and hope alike. He vowed quietly to himself that he would one day break free from the shadows obscuring his mother's heart. Zhenya, Sergey's devoted partner and the beacon of new beginnings, embodied the grace and promise he clung to. A future where love was not withheld, but freely given. Despite the pain that clung like a second skin, Sergey's spirit endured. Night after night, dreams haunted him with flickers of his mother's distant face and whispered condemnations from unseen shadows. Yet each morning he rose armed with determination, nurtured in the quiet strands of Lydia's care and Simeon's steadfast friendship. Sergey's journey was one of relentless pursuit to understand the silent wounds that shaped his earliest years. Milka's past,
shrouded in mystery and suffering, gradually seeped into Sergey's consciousness like a slow tide. The fragments he pieced together whispered of a torment beyond his childhood imaginings: violence, betrayal, and the mother's broken soul. This terrible history explained the cold walls Milka built, a fortress against the past too gruesome to face, even in the tender moments when parenting demanded a loving embrace. Varvara, a spectral figure, symbolic of forgiveness and comfort, appeared in the shadows of Sergey's dreams, an ethereal presence gently guiding him through the labyrinths of grief and anger. Her soft voice and tranquil gaze offered a path to reconciliation, where words had failed, helping Sergey to find peace within the chaos of his fragmented family legacy. As years passed, Sergey's perseverance transformed his childhood pain into a fierce determination to succeed. Through sheer will, he built a life as a respected lawyer in the midst of bustling Moscow, carving out a space where his past did not dictate his future. Yet, the wounds from that silent childhood still throbbed beneath the surface, waiting for the moment they could be healed. On the day his mother fell gravely ill, the fragile ties that bound them were tested anew. The hospital room became a crucible of emotion, where unspoken resentments and tentative hopes clashed. Milka's bitterness remained, but beneath it lay a raw vulnerability that Sergey was not prepared for. The confrontation cracked open old scars, revealing the desperate need for understanding and forgiveness that neither had dared to pursue until then. Sergey's heart ached with the recognition of his mother's humanity, fragile and flawed, shaped by unbearable pain. The presence of Zhenya and their soon-to-be-born child imbued him with renewed hope, a promise of healing and continuity beyond the shadows that had burdened his lineage. Together with Lydia and the steady friendship of Simeon, Sergey stood at the cusp of transforming his family's silent wounds into a story of love and redemption. As the night deepened, so too did Sergey's resolve to unravel the tangled threads of his past. The unseen forces that had haunted his childhood now beckoned him toward truth, forgiveness, and ultimately peace. His journey was far from over, but the path ahead was illuminated by the quiet strength of those who had loved him in their imperfect ways. And so, as dawn approached, Sergey prepared to face the next chapter of his life, one where the past would no longer imprison him, but instead become a foundation for healing and hope. The silence of his childhood, long filled with pain and secrets, was ready to give way to the light of understanding and the warmth of a love finally unbound. A mother's rejection. A shadow had settled over Sergey's life for 3 long days, a relentless premonition of dread that clung to him like a second skin. Sleep offered no refuge. His dreams became murky landscapes of unease and whispered warnings. Each night, an invisible force tightened around his heart, gnawing with icy fingers at his resolve. Then, on the 3rd night, she appeared, a spectral figure gliding from the dark corner of his room toward the bed, her eyes lifeless pools that imprisoned his gaze. He felt a cold touch, as if her ghostly hand sunk deep into his chest, clutching his heart with unforgiving frost. Paralyzed by terror, tears streamed down his face as he whispered broken pleas for forgiveness no mother had ever granted. Sergey's early years were shrouded in abandonment. Milka, his mother, had recoiled from him, unable or unwilling to embrace the child she bore. It was Lydia, his resilient grandmother, who nurtured Sergey through his formative trials, forming a bulwark against the loneliness that threatened to engulf him. Lydia's hands, worn and compassionate, had steadied his small frame when Milka's heart faltered. Memories of that fractured bond haunted Sergey's past like a relentless specter, shaping his every hope and fear. One cold afternoon, Sergey remembered a tender scene fraught with rejection. Helplessly, he had run into Milka's arms, his breath ragged with longing. But she recoiled, as if touched by a cruel flame, her face contorted in disgust. "Go away," she hissed, her voice a cold gale. Lydia's reproachful glance lingered on her daughter's back. "She is your child. Speak kindly, or you will lose him to bitterness." But Milka retreated farther, intangible and raw, refusing the ties that bound mother to son. Sergey's heart shattered anew beneath the silent witness of his grandmother's sorrowful eyes. "Why does mommy not love me?" little Sergey had asked one evening, twisting beneath the weight of invisible wounds. "Am I so bad?" His voice barely a breath. Lydia's response was laden with reluctant truth, a protective veil over deeper secrets. "You are good, my child," she said, smoothing his hair. "But some pain too large to speak divides hearts. One day you will understand." Years trickled by, but the truth remained locked away, carefully guarded by Lydia's quiet refusal to reveal what Milka herself would not acknowledge. By the time Sergey's 18th birthday had passed, he had escaped the confines of that fractured childhood. Independence beckoned in the bustling heart of Moscow. Building from scratch, he became a successful lawyer, his relentless ambition fueled by a desire to redefine himself. Yet the ghost of maternal rejection lingered, like a scar that refused to heal. Success could not erase the echoes of cold shoulders, bitter words, or absent warmth. When illness finally claimed Milka, it ripped open wounds thought dormant. Lydia called, her voice trembling with urgency and fear, begging Sergey to visit. At the hospital near Lefortovo, Sergey confronted a woman transformed by suffering, but no less estranged. "How did you get here?" Milka snapped, disdain sharpening her tone. Sergey's legal acumen had provided access, but not acceptance. "I am your son," he said softly, hoping to pierce the wall of indifference. Milka's response was an icy rebuke, casting him into the shadows of rejection once more. The tension between them flared into a tempest of emotions, bitter accusations replacing fragile hopes. "You are not my mother," Sergey cried. "You bore me." Milka spat back venomously, branding him a monster in words that seared his soul. His efforts to win affection, to legitimize his existence, seemed futile against the fortress of her hatred. Lydia observed from the sidelines, powerless yet committed to shielding Sergey from deeper harm. That night, Sergey's torment manifested in haunting visions. Phantom voices whispered curses tangled with reality, like sinister threads woven into his mind. A sudden gust rattled the window pane, a symbolic breach in his fragile sanctum. Attempting to close it, he was flung back onto his bed by an invisible force, symbolizing the grip of his past fears. Sleep became a battlefield,
where spirits waged war against his peace. On subsequent nights, the presence grew more tangible. Footsteps approaching, uncertain but insistent. Sergey curled into a protective cocoon, paralyzed between fear and defiance. When icy fingers grazed his face, a primal scream erupted from his chest, shattering the silence. Yet, no one but shadows answered his cry, leaving him suspended in a liminal realm between waking terror and restless sleep. Determined to confront this spectral torment, Sergey armed himself with caffeine and resolve. A dimly lit room and the gripping book became his shield against the unknown. The night unfolded with a sinister grace as a small fiery creature darted across the floor, eyes glowing with mischievous malevolence. The creature mocked him with chilling words, taunting the cursed legacy he bore onto his mother's name. Sergey fought the urge to flee, summoning fragmented prayers taught by Lydia, seeking solace in ancient words. Then the apparition of Milka emerged from the darkness. Her ghost hovered close, the familiar yet distorted visage of the woman who had shaped his fate. His tear-filled gaze met hers, recognizing a tragic reflection of regret and pain. Her touch was paradoxically cold and crushing, as if her unresolved remorse had manifested physically. Yet, in the spectral exchange, a fragile bridge formed between past and present. Milka's whispered confessions unfold horrifying truths buried deep in shadowed years. The brutal violence she endured in youth, the monstrous figure who haunted her memories, and the harrowing aftermath that had fractured her capacity to love. Her story, whispered like a sorrowful litany, revealed the tangled knots of trauma that had bound mother and son in silence and pain. She pleaded for forgiveness, urging Sergey to release both her and himself from the chains of this inherited curse. Sergey's heart cracked open under the weight of this revelation. Tear-streaked and trembling, he forgave her with words heavy with compassion, imagining a future where love could finally take root. He spoke of hope, his forthcoming marriage to Zhenya, the impending birth of their child, and a life that might transcend the legacy of pain. Milka's shadow brightened, the dark stain around her heart fading as the light of forgiveness shone through. The quiet aftermath was broken by Lydia's call, her sobs confirming Milka's final passing. Sergey felt a paradoxical peace, knowing that forgiveness had healed wounds beyond death's reach. Sitting with Zhenya and Lydia by Milka's grave, the bright sun and clear sky mirrored the newfound clarity in Sergey's soul. The mother who had denied him love had found a measure of redemption, and Sergey embraced the promise of a healed family. Yet this end was but a chapter in a longer story. The threads of past and future intertwined, beckoning Sergey to navigate the complex path ahead. The arrival of the new life with Zhenya, the support of Semyon and Arseny bridging medical truths and emotional healing, and the comforting presence of Varvara, the spirit of forgiveness, would all shape the unfolding tapestry of his existence. With courage born from pain and hope, Sergey prepared to face the challenges yet unseen, stepping toward the dawn of a new beginning, breaking free and climbing high. The weight of an invisible shadow had clung to Sergey's heart for days,
settling deeper with each restless night. His dreams twisted into foggy corridors where whispering shapes slithered just beyond his sight. One evening, as moonlight filtered through the peeling curtains, a figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette that chilled his very soul. It glided toward his bed silently, the air growing still and cold. Sergey's wide eyes met hers, Milka's lifeless gaze accusing and empty. Terror engulfed him, tears failing to stem the rising panic. Her hand, pale and spectral, plunged into his chest, clutching his heart with a grip icy as winter's breath. "Mother," he whispered, voice cracking, "please forgive me." His words dangled in the air, fragile as glass. Sergey's childhood had been shaped by Lydia, his steadfast grandmother, who raised him after Milka's distant rejection. Memories flickered like an old film, a toddler's desperate smile meeting a mother's cold refusal. "Let him be," Lydia had said, her voice steady despite the ache inside. "He needs love, even if it isn't from you." Milka's retreating figure haunted the edges of Sergey's past, tangled with silence and unspoken pain. Years passed, but the wounds Milka inflicted refused to heal. Sergey carried the burden of abandonment and scorn, yet found solace in Lydia's warm embrace and patient teachings. "You are good," the old woman insisted, brushing stray hair from his forehead. "No darkness can touch that." Still, the unanswered questions lingered. Why had his mother's heart turned so cold? Why did love evade their small family like a fleeting shadow? Turned 18, Sergey stepped into the vastness of Moscow, determined to carve a new life. From modest roots he climbed, barely stopping to rest, transforming hardship into opportunity. His intellect sharpened under ceaseless study. His determination fueled late nights in bleak offices. Soon, the young man earned his place as a respected lawyer, a beacon rising from the depths. Yet, beneath the gleaming surface, the past gnawed fiercely. One day, news pierced the fragile calm. Milka was ill, lying weak in a hospital close to Sergey's office. Lydia's trembling voice urged him to visit. Reluctant yet compelled, Sergey rushed to the sterile white halls of the Baumansky Hospital, heart pounding with the tumult of hope and dread. As he entered her room, the familiar coldness returned with full force. Milka turned away, her face a fortress of silence and bitterness. "Why are you here?" she spat, eyes sharp and unforgiving. Sergey's pleas for connection met only rejection. Words escalated to shouts. Buried rage erupted as he challenged the hollow echoes of her accusation. "I am your son," he cried. "I fought to survive, to rise. Was that not enough?" But Milka's voice sliced through the air like a blade. "You are no son to me, a monster born of pain." These wounds reopened scars Sergey had long locked away. Pain mingled with anger, confusion, and sorrow. That night, darkness reclaimed him in dreams haunted by shadows and whispers. "You cursed your mother. You will regret it," hissed voices, invisible, yet all too real. Windows flung open by unseen hands, curtains fluttering like specters in a storm.
Sergey awoke shaking, breath ragged, heart racing. Days of torment followed, the line between waking and nightmare blurring. By the third night, he embraced the challenge. 3 mugs of thick coffee fueled his vigil. A small lantern bathed the room in gentle light. Sergey waited, anchored by resolve and prayer whispered in fragments learned from Lydia. A small creature darted from shadow to shadow, furred, yellow-eyed, and mischievous. "You cursed your mother," it squeaked mockingly, before disappearing. Sergey's tense shoulders relaxed slightly, though the air remained taut with unseen presence. Then, from the darkest corner, she returned, Milka's spirit, shimmering, ethereal, and fragile. Her gaze, once cold, now bore a sorrowful tenderness. She reached towards Sergey, her phantom hand sinking into his chest, gripping his heart briefly before letting go, as if the pain had weight beyond her own. "Sergey," she whispered softly, "forgive me. Release me from this burden." The truth spilled quietly into the night air. Milka confessed the horrors she endured, unspeakable violations that shattered her soul before Sergey's birth. "I could not love you as I wished," she revealed, voice cracking. "The past chained me in darkness. I was broken long before you came. My mother said to keep you, to love you, because you were not at fault. But the memories poisoned love in my heart." Sergey's tears flowed freely as he absorbed her confession, sorrow mingled with newfound understanding. "I forgive you, mother," he murmured amidst the storm in his chest. "We will find peace. I will cherish the life that awaits. Soon, Zhenya and our unborn child will fill our days with light. I promise you, you will be part of that joy." A gentle smile lit Milka's fading form, the dark stain of her heart dissolving like mist at dawn. Light flooded the room. Her figure shimmered and melted away, carried at last by Varvara, a guardian spirit of forgiveness and solace. The next moment, the phone's insistent ring sliced through the quiet. Lydia's trembling voice came through. "She has passed, Sergey." By Milka's grave on a radiant morning, Sergey sat with Zhenya, their newborn son cradled warmly in her arms, and Lydia nearby, the circle complete. The pain of years softened into an enduring love, and in the heart of loss bloomed the fragile hope of new beginnings, the promise of healing written across the sky. As shadows of the past faded, Sergey's resolve strengthened. His journey of reconnection and redemption was far from over. Ahead lay untold stories of forgiveness, friendships with Semyon's loyal support, confrontations with Arseny bridging history and healing, and the unfolding promise that life, no matter how fractured, could rise again with purpose and grace. The night waned, and with dawn's first light, Sergey understood that freedom would be found not in escape, but in facing the darkness with open, courageous heart. The sickbed confrontation. Sergey's heart pounded as he stepped into the stark hospital corridor, a cold wave of dread settling over him. The sterile scent mingled with the faint beeping of monitors, but he refused to let the heaviness in his chest stop him. This visit was years in the making, the moment he had anxiously feared and hoped for all at once. The hope to mend fractured ties clashed violently against the weight of painful memories lurking beneath the surface. He forced himself forward.
Milka lay pale and fragile on the narrow bed in room 212 of a Balmansky hospital near Lefortovo. Though Sergey had worked tirelessly to build a successful life as a demanding lawyer in Moscow's heart, nothing had prepared him for the cold rebuff greeting him now. As he entered, Milka's eyes snapped towards him with hostile sharpness. "How did you get in here?" she hissed, voice like brittle glass. Instead of a warm reunion, Sergey met palpable tension, stretching the thin air between them. "I arranged it," Sergey said carefully, trying to soften his tone. "I am a lawyer. You did forget, didn't you? I wanted to see how you are feeling. Talk to the doctor about your tests." Her response was silence, punctuated by a harsh disregard. Then she turned away, facing the wall as if he was a stranger, or worse, an enemy. Every nerve in him screamed for understanding, for connection, lost over years of bitterness and rejection. He swallowed the lump in his throat. "Mom," Sergey ventured again, carefully choosing words. "How are you really doing? Let me help. I want to be here for you." "Don't call me that," Milka snapped bitterly, twisting her face in disdain. "I am not your mother." Shock and pain shattered Sergey's careful restraint. "Why? I was born to you. I am your son," he cried, voice cracking under the weight of his anguish. "You are not human," she whispered venomously. "A monster." Her words fell like icy daggers, carving wounds years overdue, but still raw. Fury lashed out through Sergey's despair. "You are the monster. I fought from nothing to something, for your approval, for your love, but you turned away. You never saw me." Milka's back remained turned. The silence that followed was heavier than any storm. Sergey stepped closer, apprehension mixing with desperation. He noticed her flinch, recoiling as if his presence burned her. "Please," he stammered. "Forgive me. I lost my temper." "Don't touch me," she snapped, a tremor shaking her body. "I feel your breath on my neck. Leave. You have no son to me." His heart splintered. The room felt suffocating, the space between them unbridgeable. Milka buried her face in the pillow, chest heaving with silent sobs. Sergey's world tilted, an unbearable abyss swallowing all hope. "How can you be my mother and say this?" he whispered, voice breaking into tears. His soul screamed, breaking down walls built too high. Then he turned sharply and fled the room, refusing to see her suffer alone. That night, darkness crept deeper as tormented sleep offered only restless shadows. Phantom sighs whispered the words he feared. "You cursed your mother. You will regret it." The window slammed open with an unseen gust, curtains whipping wildly like a spectral warning. Sergey awoke, heart drumming wild in the still room. Confusion and fear clashing inside. The silver moonlight slanted softly through the glass. Tonight was different. He could feel it. Then came the footsteps, uneven, nervous sounds, scratching at the edge of his mind, closing in relentlessly. He called tightly, fists clenched, eyes squeezed shut,
afraid to confront what lurked in the dark. The heavy breath, a cold touch ghosting his cheek. Then a scream tore him awake into suffocating silence. By the third night, Sergey prepared thoroughly. 3 cups of strong coffee, his favorite book, and a glowing night lamp to pierce the gloom. Sleep was a stranger. He waited, heart on edge. Suddenly, a small furry shape skittered from shadow to shadow, laughter piercing the silence. Its yellow eyes gleamed wickedly, voice shrill, yet hauntingly human. You cursed your mother, cursed her. You will pay. Sergei's hand twitched toward the switch, but fear rooted him in place. In the corner, rustling grew louder. Memories of prayers his grandmother Lydia uttered echoed faintly in his mind. He muttered fragmented words aloud. The room grew still. Then she appeared, shimmering from the darkest corner. The ghostly form of Milka leaned in close, eyes lifeless but haunting, hands reaching through shadows to clutch his heart with icy fingers. Fear-stricken tears poured down his cheeks. Sergey, the spirit whispered tenderly, stepping back, warmth fighting the chill. Forgive me, I cannot leave. They call me below. Shocked, Sergey whispered, Mom, what happened? The doctor said you'd recover. Her silhouette flickered softly, a wound blooming dark where her heart should be. Forgive. Take away the curse. It drags me down. I cannot release it alone. Overcome with grief, Sergey faltered. I forgive you. Please don't go. Let me help you. Zhenya and I will be parents soon. We will make a family you can be proud of. Milka's shadow softened, the black blot in her chest fading into light. I must confess, the burden you bear comes from me. Long ago, I was brutalized by a monster who left scars deeper than the flesh. After that, you came, innocent, yet a reminder. I could not love you, haunted by memories and pain. Tears streamed as Sergey cradled his shattered past. I forgive you, Ma. Please stay. Her image smiled, then dissolved like morning mist. The curse lifted. The phone rang, breaking the fragile peace. It was Lydia, sobbing softly. Milka has passed, said Lydia. Sergey nodded quietly. I know. She finally found peace. Later, beneath the radiant sun and endless blue sky, Sergey sat with Zhenya. Their newborn son cradled close, and grandmother Lydia near Milka's grave. A calm joy settled in their hearts. Forgiveness had freed them all. Their lives intertwined now with hope and healing, as Sergey prepared to face the future, stronger than the past that once threatened to consume him. The echoes of pain had quieted, but the journey was far from over. With new bonds and old wounds mending, Sergey looked forward to the days when Varvara's gentle spirit might truly guide them toward redemption. And so the turning of time brought fresh clarity, revealing not all ghosts linger to haunt. Some remain to teach us the power of release and love's fragile grace. As the chapter closed, Sergey felt a tentative peace, yet knew the path ahead held shadows yet unseen, and secrets calling to be uncovered. The next steps would demand courage beyond all he had known, his heart ready to embrace whatever awaited in the unfolding story. Nightmares and hauntings.
Nightmares gripped Sergey relentlessly for 3 days. Shadows flickering at the edges of his consciousness. Sleep became a battlefield where unsettling visions shattered fleeting peace. Each night, dread crept closer, an unseen presence tightening its hold around his heart, until finally she appeared. Emerging from the darkness like a wraith, his mother's ghost glided silently toward his bed. Her hollow, lifeless eyes locked onto his trembling face, as tears of terror streamed down his cheeks. A spectral hand reached out, sinking through flesh to clutch his heart with an icy grip that seemed to freeze time itself. "Mother, please forgive me," Sergey whispered, voice barely audible beneath the thunder of his pounding chest, clutching at the palpable weight crushing his soul. From the earliest days, Lydia, his grandmother, had raised him after Milka, his birth mother, had recoiled from motherhood with cold refusal. Memories of his desperate attempts as a child flooded back, running toward Milka with outstretched arms, gasping for her warmth and acceptance, only to be met with rejection and disdain. "Stay away from me," she spat, her face twisted with loathing, as the young boy stumbled back, confused and heartbroken. Lydia's gentle chiding masked a deep sorrow for both mother and child, for she knew the scars of past horrors lay hidden beneath Milka's cold exterior. Sergey's childhood was marked by whispered sorrow and unanswered questions. When he asked why his mother could not love him, Lydia dismissed his pleas with a painful mix of protectiveness and resignation. "One day the truth will be told," she promised. Yet the cruel silence remained unbroken as the years stretched on. Milka refused all contact, her disdain palpable in every encounter, while Lydia guarded secrets like a fortress, unwilling or unable to lift the veil. Upon reaching adulthood, Sergey fled the shadow of his painful past. He carved out a life in the heart of Moscow, his relentless work ethic transforming him into a successful lawyer. A small apartment, a reliable car, all symbols of triumph over adversity. Yet the fragile peace shattered when news came that Milka was hospitalized near his office. Lydia's trembling voice conveyed the urgency, stirring something dormant within Sergey, a flicker of hope for reconciliation. The hospital room was cold and sterile, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside Sergey. Milka's refusal to acknowledge him, even in her frailty, cut deeper than any wound. "How did you get in here?" she snapped, eyes hard as stone. Sergey's gentle attempt to bridge the abyss was met with venom. "You are not my son," she hissed, her words like shards of glass into his soul. Anger and despair collided as the son who had risen from nothing screamed at the mother who shunned him, vowing his worth and love only to meet cold silence. Her tears masked a secret torment, his accusations a futile grasp at her unreachable heart. He fled the room, grief choking his voice, and plunged into a nightmare of spectral visitations. Shadows hovered and whispered curses, accusing him of damning his mother. The window slammed shut with supernatural force, while unseen hands pushed him back onto the bed. His mind teetered on the edge of madness as chilling presences circled, their eerie laughter slicing through the silence. Sergey's whispered prayers, remnants of Lydia's teachings, seemed to push back the darkness, yet it was only a brief respite. The third night brought the unearthly visitor, a small creature, with glowing eyes and a mocking human voice. It taunted him, repeating damning phrases, disappearing as suddenly as it came. Sergey felt the frigid touch of the unseen on his face, igniting a scream that shattered the night's fragile calm. His body trembled with cold sweat, the room emptier yet heavy with dread. Determined to face his torment, Sergey armed himself with caffeine and ancient words of power. He swore to remain awake, eyes fixed on the murky corners of his room. And then she came again, Milka's ghost, radiant yet haunted, her translucent form flickering with a mournful light. The darkness around her chest pulsed like a black hole, a mark of pain and unfinished business. "Forgive me, my son," her spirit pleaded, her voice a fragile melody bridging worlds. Sergey's heart recoiled, yet he reached out, desperate to free them both from the chains of past atrocities. She revealed the cruel secret buried deep. Milka's youth, shattered by violence, the monstrous abuse that twisted her ability to love. Sergey's conception was a fragile bloom from that torment, a beacon of innocence in a wasteland of suffering. The confession broke through the icy walls of his resentment, flooding him with sorrow and compassion. "I forgive you, Laza," he whispered through tears, holding her spirit with renewed tenderness. The darkness that gripped her heart faded, replaced by a soft glow of solace and absolution. Their communion was interrupted by the urgent ring of Lydia's phone. The news was devastating. Milka had passed away, her earthly suffering ended. Sergey, with love renewed, embraced the memory of his mother as he sat beside Lydia and Zhenya, his partner pregnant with the first child. Together they faced the fresh dawn, the pain transformed by forgiveness. A future opened before them, where haunting pasts could be laid to rest beneath the warm sun, and new life blossomed with hope. As Sergey stepped forward into this fragile peace, the threads of his story began to weave towards deeper truths, mysteries lingering unresolved. The shadows may have receded, but their whispers still echoed, beckoning him onward to the revelations yet to come. The unseen visitor. Sergey knew that tonight would be different. The dread hound in his dreams no longer felt like a mere shadow, but a looming presence demanding confrontation. 3 restless nights of torment had eroded his resolve, yet a stubborn flicker of courage remained as he sat on the edge of his bed, clutching a worn book, its pages illuminated by the soft glow of his night lamp. His eyes scanned words that failed to distract him. Instead, they echoed the eerie rhythm of his pounding heart. The clock marked the witching hour, when a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere made Sergey freeze. From the far corner, a small trembling silhouette emerged, a furry creature no larger than his fist, its golden eyes glowing with unnatural light. The entity smirked and rasped through a voice that was both childish and cryptic. "You cursed your mother, and you shall suffer." Then it vanished, leaving only a cold draft curling at the edges of the blankets. Terrified but resolute, Sergey muttered fragmented prayers his grandmother Lydia had taught him,
fragments of ancient incantations rooted in folklore and faith. The atmosphere thickened as silence swallowed the room, though the unseen menace still lingered in his mind, a riddle wrapped in spectral menace. It was then that she appeared. Milka's ghost, her presence both ethereal and foreboding. Her translucent figure glided forward until she hovered near the bed, eyes sunken, yet burning with an otherworldly intensity. Sergey's breath hitched as memories and fears collided within him. Her hand reached out, passing through his chest to squeeze his heart, icy and unrelenting. "Sergey," she whispered, her voice layered with sorrow and accusation. "Forgive me. Release me from this torment." Conflicted between fear and empathy, Sergey pleaded, "Mother, why are you trapped? What do you need from me?" The ghost flickered, revealing a dark blot near her heart that pulsed ominously. Before more could be said, the room dimmed further, and another presence emerged. Varvara, the spirit of forgiveness and comfort, bathed in a calming silver light. She stepped between Sergey and Milka's spectral form, her voice soothing the tempest within Sergey. Varvara shared the history long concealed. Milka's past was fractured by violence and despair, memories too grievous for mere words. In her youth, an unspeakable cruel act had stained her soul, an assault by a man whose name was whispered reluctantly even in the family. "He was a monster disguised as a man," Varvara murmured. "And from that darkness you were born, Sergey, a light misunderstood by your mother, who could not bear the shadows it cast." Sergey's mind raced as Lydia's tales of silent suffering unfolded in new hues of pain and resilience. The bond between mother and son had been severed not by choice, but by the scars of a past that neither wished to revisit. While Milka's spirit trembled with regret, the blot near her heart began shifting under the weight of truth and confession. "I never loved you as I should, because that love became a chain of agony," Milka confessed with trembling lips. Outside the hospital walls, where Milka's mortal body lay frail and breathing its last, Dr. Arseny and Semyon awaited the outcome of Sergey's visit. Arseny, a figure of calm professionalism, held keys to the past through medical files and whispered histories. Semyon, Sergey's steadfast friend and colleague, offered strength and reason grounded in the practical world Sergey so often escaped into. They both knew this night teetered on the boundary between healing and loss. Through tears and whispered apologies, Sergey embraced a new understanding. His pain was not a barrier, but a bridge. Forgiveness was not weakness, but salvation. "I forgive you, Mother," he said, voice quivering, "and I will carry your burden, so you can rest." At that moment, the shadow upon Milka's heart dissolved like mist under morning sun, and her form gently lifted before dissolving into a cascade of starlight. As dawn crept softly over Moscow's skyline, Sergey's phone rang. Lydia's trembling voice confirmed the inevitable. Milka had passed. Despite the sorrow, a serene clarity washed over Sergey. He was no longer a son haunted by rejection, but a man reconciled with his past. The pathway ahead held the promise of a new chapter, with Zhenya, his devoted partner, whose pregnancy symbolized hope and continuation beyond the pain. Their future awaited, fragile and luminous, as Sergey gathered strength from forgiveness and love, both human and spectral. The night had tested him, revealed secrets bound in silence, and awakened spirits long trapped in sorrow. Yet, in the stillness that followed, a quiet assurance settled. Not all visitors were to be feared, some came to heal. Sergey closed his eyes, breathing deeply, ready to face the dawn and the challenges it would bring. With the past now unburdened, Sergey knew that the journey was far from over. The shadows of vengeance and guilt lingered, and new forces were stirring in the depths of the unseen. But surrounded by those who cared, Lydia, Semyon, Arseny, and Zhenya, he felt a resolve fortified. Whatever the next chapter held, Sergey would confront it unflinchingly, carrying with him the lessons of forgiveness, sacrifice, and the enduring power of love. The night's visit was but a part of the greater story unfolding, a vital thread woven into the tapestry of his life's true pursuit. The revelation of pain. For 3 relentless days, Sergey had been haunted by a sinister premonition that clawed at his mind even in sleep. His nights were tortured by murky, unsettling dreams that refused to fade with dawn. Then, from the blackened corner of his room, she emerged, a ghostly figure gliding silently towards his bed. Her hollow eyes met his, lifeless and chilling, and instant terror froze him in place. Sergey wept, paralyzed by dread. As her translucent hand reached out, it plunged into his chest, gripping his heart with an ice-cold hold. "Mother, please forgive me," Sergey whispered through trembling lips, but words seemed so feeble against the shadow's power. Since childhood, Sergey had been raised by his grandmother Lydia, who had devoted herself to him after his biological mother Milka had all but abandoned him. The wounds of that abandonment festered silently between them. "Mom, Mom!" little Sergey had once cried, running toward his mother, breathless with hope, stretching tiny arms wide for an embrace. "Leave me alone!" Milka recoiled, her face twisting in disgust. Lydia scolded gently, wiping floury hands from kitchen work. "Milka, that is your child. Show some kindness. A child perishes without a mother's warmth." "I cannot," Milka whispered, her eyes distant and hollow. "Please, do not break my heart." Lydia sighed, gathering Sergey and retreating from the battlefield of a fractured family. Her instincts urged keeping the child away from hurt. "Why does Mommy not love me?" Sergey once asked her softly, heartbreaking. "You are good, Sergey," replied Lydia, tying her headscarf tighter with a weary hand. "But some things you will understand only when older." But when older came and went, Milka stayed cold, her disdain sharp and impenetrable. On Sergey's 18th birthday, the silence finally drove him away. He left Lydia's home, determined to forge a life far from the shadows cast by his mother's rejection. Years of grit and sweat earned him a car, an apartment in central Moscow, and respect in the legal community. Success seemed to shine a light on his future. Yet his past lurked, just outside the glow. Then came the call that fractured his fragile peace. Milka was sick, hospitalized near Lefortovo, close to Sergey's office. Grandma Lydia's shaky voice begged him to visit. The moment he entered her sterile hospital room, the chill of old wounds sharpened. "How did you get in?" Milka snapped, cold and unwelcoming. "I am a lawyer. I made arrangements," Sergey answered, forcing a smile. "You are nothing to me," she spat, turning away.
His heart shattered under her harsh words. The familiar yearning to bridge the divide battled with growing frustration.
Why can you not see me? The air thickened between them, frost replacing warmth.
Do not call me mother, Milka's voice cracked with bitter rage. I was never your mother.
You burst me. Sergey's anger boiled over. I fought for your love through every hardship, but you never cared. Monster, she whispered, eyes stinging with tears, staggering backward. Desperation drove his hands toward her, trembling with hope. Do not touch me, she recoiled. Their fragile truce shattered. Milka's sobs echoed through the stark room. You are not my son. Torn loose inside, Sergey's voice became a ragged cry. You are not my mother. I curse you. He fled, choking on sobs, tears blurring the harsh fluorescent light. That night, a nightmare came. Shadows twisted and danced around the room, voices murmuring curses. You cursed your mother. You will regret it. A sudden gust slammed a window shut. As he reached up, invisible hands thrust him down, pressing him into the bed. At dawn, a silver moonlight bathed the quiet room. Still, the nightmare continued the following night. Footsteps, uneasy and uneven, pacing by his bed. He squeezed his eyes and curled into a ball like a frightened child. But the sounds pressed closer until ice-cold fingers brushed his face. A scream tore from his throat, and he awoke alone. Prepared for the third night, Sergey fortified himself with coffee and a book, determined not to sleep, to face the unknown. From shadow to shadow, a small furry creature darted, its gleaming yellow eyes glowing as it laughed in a human voice. You cursed your mother. Now you will regret. Paralyzed with fear, Sergey muttered disjointed prayers once taught by Lydia, and the room settled, quiet. Then she appeared again, floating silently from the dark corner toward his bed, leaning close, her lifeless eyes freezing his soul. This time Sergey recognized Milka. Her ghostly hand plunged into his chest, clutching his heart before releasing. Sergey, the apparition called softly, retreating. Mother, what are you doing here? He stammered, the shocking truth dawning that she was dead, though doctors had promised recovery. Her spectral form shimmered pale white, but near the heart a black stain spread. Forgive me, my son. Set me free. Darkness drags me down. I do not want to go with it. How can I let you go, mother? Sergey whispered, battling tears. The curse, son, she murmured. I cannot leave burdened so. Please forgive me. Her confession spilled out like poisoned rain. When young, a monster violated me. Not a man, but a fiend. You came after my son, and I could not love you. He tortured me, then his friends. I barely survived. I wanted to abort, but my mother said no. She said, you will raise this child. It was never your fault. Sergey trembled as understanding flooded him. I forgive you, mother. Please do not leave me. There is still hope. Your grandchild will be born soon, a boy, and Zhenya and I will marry. We will all be a family. Milka smiled, the black mark fading as light enveloped her. Forgiveness, she whispered before dissolving into the ether. The phone rang, jolting Sergey. Lydia's voice cracked with sorrow. Milka passed. I know, he replied softly. Together, Sergey, his wife Zhenya,
their newborn boy and Lydia stood by Milka's grave beneath a radiant sun and clear sky. Peace settled over Sergey's soul. He finally knew his mother loved him. She had forgiven him. As they left the cemetery, a gentle breeze whispered promises of healing and renewal, beckoning Sergey toward a future where interwoven past and present might finally find harmony, forgiveness, and release. The weight of an unspoken curse hung heavily over Sergey's nights as he lay awake, chased by shadows only he could see. For 3 consecutive evenings, a chilling sensation clawed at his heart, relentless and unyielding. The air grew thick with silence, pierced only by faint whispers curling from forgotten corners. Then, emerging from the darkest one, a figure appeared, silent, spectral, and cold. It floated closer, bending low until its face hovered inches from Sergey's own. Eyes as empty as a grave stared into his soul, while a spectral hand plunged through his chest, freezing his heart in an unforgiving grasp. "Mama, please, forgive me," Sergey murmured with trembling lips, tears blurring his vision as a ghostly presence tightened cruelly around his chest. His sorrow was a raw river breaking through years of torment. His voice shattered the quiet room, only to be swallowed by the void. Raised by his grandmother Lydia, Sergey's early years were shaded by abandonment. Milka, his mother, had long since recoiled from the bond of motherhood, turning away when he needed love the most. Lydia had shielded her grandson's innocence, wrapping him in warmth whenever rejection knocked too hard. "She is your flesh," Lydia would remind Milka gently, but her words fell on deaf ears. The bitter refusal in Milka's eyes corrupted the air, poisoning every fragile moment of tenderness. "Mama, I'm here," the young Sergey would call out, his small hands reaching. But Milka withdrew. Repelled by the burden of memories she could neither face nor erase. Lydia's heart broke with every retreat, every unspoken explanation. "Child, you are innocent," she whispered fiercely. "Don't lose yourself to her silence." Yet no comfort came, only questions that stuck like stones in Sergey's chest. Years passed. Sergey grew strong and determined, carving a path from hardship to hope. With relentless effort, he claimed success as a lawyer in Moscow, climbing the ladder others thought unreachable. Yet the ghost of his mother's rejection shadowed every achievement. When Milka fell ill and Lydia pleaded, Sergey hurried to her bedside, clutching fragile dreams of reconciliation. Their reunion was marked not by warmth, but by cold walls of resentment. "How did you get in here?" Milka snapped, recoiling from his presence as though proximity burned. Sergey tried to bridge the widening gulf, his heart laid bare by years of longing for maternal acceptance. "I'm a lawyer, Mother. I fought for us," he whispered softly. But her stone face offered no reply, only silence, heavy and accusing. "Mama, how do you feel? Can I speak with the doctor?" His voice cracked with hope. Milka's fury erupted anew. "Do not call me that! I am not your mother!" Her words struck like daggers, slicing through Sergey's defenses. "But you bore me!" he cried, desperation shadowing his face. "You called me a monster, when all I ever wanted was your love." The room trembled with unspoken pain as her back turned, tears streaming in the shadows, her sobs spilling raw wounds neither could heal. That night, nightmares claimed Sergey once more. Whispers echoed merciless curses against his mother,
Windows flapped violently, sweeping away the last traces of peace. He awoke to the moon's cold gaze, alone but haunted.
The next evening brought restless footsteps hurtling closer to the bed. Frozen in chambered fear, Sergey curled into himself, memories dragging him into the abyss of childhood terrors. A breath, cold as frost, brushed his cheek, and he screamed, only to wake to empty stillness. Determined to face his fears, Sergey prepared. He fortified himself with steaming cups of strong coffee, immersing in a book by the gentle glow of a night lamp. Sleep would not claim him until he met the darkness eye to eye. From the shadows skittered a small furry creature, with gleaming yellow eyes and an eerie human laugh. "Accursed your mother's soul you have," it whispered, vanishing into the corner, like smoke spiraling into night. The room stirred, ethereal whispers tangled with sharp breaths were met by Sergey's trembling voice, reciting fractured prayers learned at his grandmother's knee. The restless air calmed, if only briefly. Then she came, Milka's ghost, ethereal and mournful, her icy gaze locked with Sergey's, the pain between them palpable. Her hand grasped his chest, cold as glacial stone, then released. "Sergey," she breathed, softer than a sigh. "Forgive me." Shock rooted him. "Mama, why are you here? I was told you would recover," he stammered, clutching tightly to the fragile hope he had nurtured for so long. Her translucent form shimmered, a dark stain marring her heart. "I cannot rest. The darkness pulls me down. This curse clings like chains." The sorrow in her voice poured over him like rain. "Forgive me, son. Release me from the burden of hate. Let me go." "I forgive you, Mama," he whispered, an aching warmth flooding his soul. "Take the curse from me. I will carry it if it frees you." Tears streamed anew as Milka's face showed the flicker of peace. "There is a truth you must know," her voice faltered. "In my youth, I endured the horror no child should witness. A monster violated my spirit, and from that cruelty you were born. I could not love you because every glance recalled that torment. The darkness that had poisoned their lives was not Sergey's cross to bear, yet it had bound them both in chains of silence and pain. Please forgive my past." Her confession shattered the final walls. Sergey shook, overwhelmed by a torrent of compassion and sorrow, mingled in one overwhelming moment. "If only life granted you more mercy, Mama. I love you now. I always have." Her heart's stain faded in response, as forgiveness mended wounds invisible to the world. The ghost smiled, radiating gentle light as she faded into the ether, leaving behind a calm never before known. The phone rang, and Sergey's heart clenched as he heard his grandmother's trembling voice. "Milka, she has passed." Sitting at the graveside with his wife Zhenya, who carried their unborn son, and Lydia, Sergey felt the son's warmth reconcile with the peace blooming inside him. The sky was clear, the air unburdened. Love had triumphed where hatred once ruled. Now the future waited, tender and bright. In the quiet that followed, Sergey felt a presence beside him. Not a shadow, but a comforting glow. Varvara, a spirit of solace and forgiveness, gently touched his shoulder, a whisper of reassurance that healing was not yet complete, but the path was open. Tomorrow awaited with promises of hope and renewal. As Sergey rose, heart still mending but unbowed, his mind turned to tomorrow's battles and blessings alike. With Simeon's steadfast friendship and Arseni's wisdom guiding him, he felt ready to face all that remained. The past's dark chapters were closing, but a new story, vibrant and alive, was just beginning to unfold. A new dawn for Sergey. A shadow of quiet had finally settled over Sergey's life as he stood by the graveside. The sharp chill of early autumn brushed softly against his face. The weight that had once suffocated his chest with unspoken pain and fury was somehow lighter now. Around him the gathering was small but strong. A circle of those who meant the most. Lydia's hands trembled slightly as she held a folded cloth, her eyes glistening with tears that spoke of decades of silent endurance. Beside her, Zhenya's presence radiated warmth, her tender grasp of Sergei's arm, an unspoken promise of new beginnings. Simeon leaned close, offering the steady support of a friend who had weathered many storms alongside him. Even Arseny, the compassionate doctor who had been the unseen link between past wounds and present healing, stood quietly, his expression a blend of professional detachment and human empathy. As the wind carried the subtle scent of fallen leaves, Sergei's thoughts wandered to Milka, the mother whose shadow had haunted his days and nights alike. The bitter memories, fraught with silence and rejection, had once seemed insurmountable. Yet now, facing the finality of her absence, a complex tide of forgiveness washed over him. It was not the torment of angry blame that kept his heart captive, but a profound understanding born from pain and revelation. The apparition of Varvara, the spirit of forgiveness and solace, came to mind. How gently she had guided Sergei through the darkest hours. Her ethereal presence had been a balm to his soul, a whispered reminder that even within brokenness, grace could take root. Memories flooded back, those uncanny nights when the line between waking and dreaming blurred, and Milka's ghost visited him with icy fingers clutching his heart. Her confession had shattered the walls Sergei had built around himself. The truth of her suffering, the unspoken horrors she had endured, and the chains of past cruelty she bore, explained much of the cold distance between them. As a boy, Sergei had longed for her love and acceptance, a yearning that felt futile in life, but found release in death's gentle embrace. Now he carried the burden she had once borne, yet felt lighter, knowing his forgiveness had lifted the curse. This catharsis, painful as it was, marked the turning of a page, from bitterness to peace. Zhenya, who had stood quietly, observing Sergei's solemn attention to the gravesite, caught his gaze and smiled softly. She was the embodiment of hope, their unborn child, a beacon of a future untainted by past shadows. Sergei's heart stirred with a new kind of love, one that was not chained to anguish, but blossomed with trust and promise. The prospect of fatherhood inspired the tenderness he had scarcely thought possible, a renewed dedication to building a life
that embraced healing and joy.
It was as if Milka's departure released not only her soul, but the family story from the grip of despair, allowing it to unfold into light and possibility.
Nearby, Simon quietly shared a few words of comfort, reminding Sergey how far he had come since those early years of orphaned childhood and maternal absence. Their friendship had been a steadfast anchor through turbulent tides, a living testament that the human spirit could triumph in the face of abandonment and pain. Similarly, Lydia's quiet resilience had shaped Sergey's character, her unwavering support guiding him through the labyrinth of loss and bitterness. Together, these bonds formed a new foundation, a sturdy bedrock upon which Sergey could build without fear of crumbling. Arseny approached then, his role transcending that of a mere physician. He spoke softly of how Milka's illness had been caught in time to offer hope. Yet fate's course was relentless. His words were measured, yet filled with compassion, underscoring the fragile beauty of life and the necessity of forgiveness. He reminded Sergey that healing was a continuous journey, one that required courage to accept both sorrow and grace. In this embrace of vulnerability lay Sergey's true strength, a readiness to face the future with an open heart, unshackled by past shadows. As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow over the remembered earth, Sergey felt the presence of Varvara again. Whether in memory or spirit, she hovered